Hello, Aries. Welcome to your monthly zodiac reading for the month of October 2025. Fall is finally here, and we are slowly creeping our way to probably one of the most fun times of year, which is Halloween. And it's when you do this kind of work, this is where all the witchy things happen. And so it's definitely a fun time of year. As always, we're going to pull an overall energy theme. We will pull tarot for each week. I will discuss the astrological transits that are occurring during those weeks. I will pull more tarot, and then we will correlate those messages and try to get a deeper understanding of what you guys can expect, what themes could be presenting themselves for you, and then we will wrap it up with some additional oracle guidance. So let's see what you guys need to know for the month of October. What does Aries need to know for the month of October? So we have the Diamond Dreamer in reverse. Material wealth, true prosperity. And this is number 6, but it's in reverse. It could be that some of you are struggling with the idea of material or true prosperity. What does that mean to you? I'm going to read from the booklet because these come direct or reverse. The Diamond Dreamer challenges you to address your perception of the power of materialism. Do you focus on the material world above all else? Have you become hypnotized by the notion that it's only reality? Have you grown too attached to stuff? Have you come to consider wealth only to be accumulated of worldly goods? Now is the time to find value and wealth in the intangible spiritual experience. Before anything is seen reflected in the manifest world, it originates in the unseen, in the spiritual, and in the divine mind. Be careful what you wish to manifest, for you may not want to pay the price of keeping it once you get it. The Diamond Dreamer also reminds you that disappointment and disillusionment are sometimes the way home to the truth of what's best for you. He may be here to tell you that when you don't get what you want, it's being withheld from you because there's something better in store. Be compassionate with yourself and others at this time. Let the Diamond Dreamer lead you to the highest dreams for your perfect purpose and true prosperity. I love that. I feel like that card is always something that's not really what we want to hear. We want to hear that the things that we want are what we're going to get. And all we have to do is just think it and believe it and know it. And those things will come to us. But sometimes the things we want aren't actually what's best for us. Let's see. This month, we're going to be experiencing a full moon within your sign on the 7th. And then we're also going to be experiencing a new moon within the opposing sign in Libra on the 21st. I will briefly touch on the transits that are occurring. So let's see what the tarot has to say for each week. Here in this first week, we have the 5 of Pentacles in reverse. So again, here, this card was telling us if something has not manifested the way you were hoping it would, it's probably because there's something better in store. And the 5 of Pentacles in reverse can represent divine intervention. So that's really interesting. That's a very interesting correlation. The Fool here in the second week, I love that. Because here in the first week is when you will experience the full moon within your sign. So this is going to be something directly correlated to your sense of self. But then it paves the way. Full moons are a sign of, or like a culmination, something that can allow for a space of release. And here we have the Fool, which is a new beginning. The 3 of Swords in reverse, this is acceptance of a heartache, acceptance of a loss. And most of the time when we feel loss, we feel this sense of separation or this sense of heartache, it can come from the idea of something, our attachment to the idea that something did not turn out the way we thought it would. Okay? But here when it's in reverse, this is coming to a place of acceptance And that acceptance opens the door for healing. And then here in the 4th week, the 8 of Swords in reverse. The 8 of Swords in reverse represents kind of like mental freedom, releasing yourself from this kind of mental imprisonment, releasing yourself from these limiting beliefs, thoughts, ways of speaking to yourself that kind of create this own little box that we keep ourselves in. In some cases, it can represent being overly self-critical, okay? So we'll kind of figure out what energy is playing out here. Here in the 1st week, again, the 5 of Pentacles in reverse, divine intervention, or a sign that hardships are kind of coming to an end. There is a light to the end of this tunnel. Mercury is moving into the sign of Scorpio. For you guys, Scorpio sits in your 8th house. This is your house of debt inheritance. It is your house of the taboo, the occult. It is your house of intimacy and shared resources. So if something didn't quite come to you, maybe finances, and this can be with an energy exchange, right? If you're putting a lot of work and effort into a new project, if you're putting a lot of work and effort into a workplace, if you're putting a lot of work and effort into something and you're not receiving what it is that you're putting back, it can feel like a loss. It can feel like a hardship. Like what it is that you want did not come to fruition, right? That's a shared resource. I'm putting in something and I'm supposed to get something back, right? And that can really touch on a very sensitive place of vulnerability, which is also a very 8th house thing. But this is your 8th house of transformation. Mercury is moving into that sign. And here we have the 5 of Pentacles. This is also the week that we will experience the full moon within the sign of Aries. Aries, of course, sits in your 1st house. This is your house of self. This is the first impression that people receive of you. So it could be maybe that people think that you got it all together and you feel like you don't. But full moons are a buildup of energy, and it is where the light of the moon tends to trigger our emotional body in a way that we kind of see the truth. Ideally, if we're aware enough, self-aware enough, we will begin to see these correlating emotional themes and we will begin to address what's actually occurring with that full moon, right? So the light of the moon is illuminating the things that we need to see that we can ultimately release. But I think for you guys, when it comes to finances, when it comes to maybe relationships, or when it comes to your physical health, things within the material, tangible world, the things that you have not received that maybe you were hoping for is actually divine intervention. Here in the 2nd week, like I said, we've got the Fool. This is a new beginning. This is a new path, a new opportunity, a chance to take a leap of faith. This is when Venus is moving into the sign of Libra. Libra sits in your 7th house of long-term commitments, business partnerships, and interpersonal relationships, and even marriage contracts. Venus moving into that sign. Venus is about love, money, value, beauty, and aesthetic. So Venus moving into Libra, she's very at home here. Libra is like her house in the Hamptons. This is her place of this is her home. I was about to say her place of worship, and it could be. But Venus is moving into a very comfortable spot. She's very at home here. So that means that her energy is able to express itself very, very easily. And it could be, I'm not going to say that it is, but it could be. We want to keep ourselves open to possibility. A new path, an opportunity for you to take a leap of faith here in this 2nd week is going to be presented to you. On the 3rd week, this is when we have the new moon within the sign of Libra. Again, your 7th house is being activated. New moons are new opportunities. They are blank slates to set intentions. And it could be that you guys are being given an opportunity to really accept past loss, to accept past separation, to accept past heartache, to accept the things that maybe you didn't get that you really thought you wanted, and move into a space of healing, and maybe even allow yourself to heal and move past into something new that's being presented to you with the Fool. This is also when we will step into Scorpio season. Again, I love the correlating fact that the week before Halloween, we step into the sign of Scorpio, which is like death and transformation. So I do love that that theme, that synchronicity that the universe always gives us. So this is when Scorpio season begins. Anytime we shift into a new astrological season, the themes and qualities of that sign begin to take center stage. And it's actually also an opportunity to align yourself or understand the house that Scorpio sits in for you a little bit better. So again, this is your house of transformation, your 8th house. Here in the last week, we have the 8 of Swords in reverse. This is the week that Mercury is moving into the sign of Sagittarius. Mercury, again, thoughts, ideas, and communication, is moving into your 9th house. This is your 9th house of higher learning. The house of higher learning also governs themes of spiritual religious beliefs. It governs moral beliefs and moral value systems, long distance travel, and even like exploring other cultures, right? So here, I like the fact that the swords are here with Mercury moving into your sense of like higher learning. And it could be like this, I don't know, it's this feeling of like, it feels like deep understanding. With Mercury moving into this house and it's being activated, this sense of higher learning, it's almost like you come into a deeper understanding, which allows you to actually be a little bit freer. And it allows you to actually break free from these mental narratives. Let's see what the other cards have to say. The 2 of Swords and the Hanged Man in reverse. So this 2 of Swords can represent making a decision. You are at a crossroads and you really need to make a decision on whether or not maybe you're potentially going to just kind of surrender, or whether it's almost like you don't want to know. Like you don't want to accept the fact that the things that you didn't get weren't actually meant for you. That's kind of what this feels like. But with the Hanged Man there, it's almost like this sense of divine intervention and this sense of like higher perspective. There's no avoiding it. You can pretend that that's not what it was and you can resist it all you want, but you resisting it does not make it untrue. Right? So that's kind of what the energy, like, it's really forcing you to this place of acceptance. Mentally, you don't want to accept it, but it feels like in your heart, in your body, you know that it's true. That the things that have not occurred the way you thought they would, the manifestations that you wanted, that have not come to fruition, it's coming into this deep understanding. And I feel like your 7th house is being activated heavily. Even with the week of the full moon, and the thing about Aries energy is that it's a lot about willpower. It's a lot about drive, right? Which can be beautiful when it comes to creating certain things. But there is no amount of willpower and there's no amount of drive that can force things to happen. And with the full moon happening this week in your 1st house, it's almost like it's forcing you to accept that fact. I don't want to believe that I can't control this. I don't want to believe that I can't will this into existence. But really, these 2 cards are saying there are some things that even Aries can't control. There are some things that are just, no matter how much you will it to happen, it's not actually going to happen. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. So that could be kind of what's coming up for you here the week of the full moon within the sign of Aries here in the 2nd week. But the beauty of that, I will say, but the beauty of that is that it's providing a brand new path. It is providing you an opportunity to take a leap of faith when it comes to, again, it could be Libra. Venus moving into Libra could very well be activating your 7th house here in this second week. But let's see what the other cards have to say. The 8 of Cups, going on a spiritual path, going on a spiritual journey, walking away. Yeah. That deep understanding is actually going to provide, it feels like, this sense of clarity that you're going to have to walk away from the things that aren't working. You're going to have to walk away from these empty cups here. This is walking away from what has not been fulfilling. This is walking away, taking that leap of faith, regardless of what the mind tells you, taking that leap of faith and walking away from the things that have not been giving back what you've been putting in. Now, this could be, again, business. When it comes to business, this could be long-term commitments. Remember, the 7th house also governs long-term commitments. If you've been putting in a lot of energy and effort trying to build something, trying to create something, whether that's a new relationship, maintaining a relationship, whether that is a business contract of some sort, if you have been trying to create this thing and it has not come to fruition yet, it might be time to accept the fact that, again, there's no amount of willpower that Aries can possess that can bring this thing forward, because it's not quite meant for you, because there is something better. There is something maybe you have not have anticipated, and you are going to have to take this leap of faith to walk away from the things that have not been giving back to you. Okay? So again, I really do feel like this is going to be revolving. It doesn't quite feel like relationships. It absolutely could. And I'm going to leave that door open because this is a collective reading, but we're going to focus the main theme around long-term commitments. Here in the 3rd week, I was about to say the 3rd house. I think the 3, I do like the fact that there's a 3. And then this is the 3rd week, but an opportunity for healing, for acceptance. Another 3. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. Maybe even the loss of a friendship here. And the Queen of Swords. So, okay, there's a lot of Libra energy at place. So your 7th, I said earlier that your 7th house is really being activated. And it is even more so with Venus moving in there, with a new moon being in place there. Your 7th house is being activated because here is Libra energy, here is Libra energy, and here is Libra energy. This is being activated very heavily. Okay. And this can even involve a friendship, even with the 3 of Cups in reverse. We can be committed to friends that we've had for a very long time. And Libra does involve relationships. These are interpersonal relationships. It's not like coworkers, which is a 6th house thing. This is a 7th house thing. These are things that develop over a long-term period of time, right? So this could be somebody you're in business with, a close personal friend. Again, it doesn't feel romantic because there's not quite a lot of cups. I mean, there are, but it doesn't give the idea that it's romantic. But this is definitely involving a long-term commitment of some sort, and it could be the loss of a friendship. The loss of a friendship, and maybe recognizing that that person, that maybe they're not as trustworthy as you believe them to be. Maybe the only reason you decided to stay in the friendship is because you just maybe felt like you had to. You're like, I'm committed to this friendship. Things can change. I'm committed to this long-term commitment. Things can change. When in reality, we have to accept the fact that we're going to have to take a loss. Okay, this can also represent maybe feeling like the loss of a support system. Maybe someone that you relied a little too heavily on for their opinion. I'm getting a really strong feeling that it's a friend. Recognizing that this person, no matter how tightly you commit to the relationship, it's almost like they're not as self-aware as you, and so they don't see the necessary work and effort that you've put into this and are unable to commit the same thing. Okay? And the Queen of Swords, when she's in reverse, is like she's people pleasing. She's allowing other people to influence her own decision making. She's allowing her emotions to influence how she makes clear and concise decisions. It's not in this deck, but it's a different deck where the bowl that represents emotions is actually kind of, it's still there, but it's caged off. When the Queen of Swords, when she's a visionary, she's a leader, she's clear, she's concise, she's got clear boundaries. She's able to see things from that higher perspective, and she's incredibly emotionally intelligent. But with the cups here being in reverse, it could be that a friend, their emotional baggage is bleeding over into your life. And I'm trying to think of all the ways that this could play out, because this can manifest itself in various different ways. But I do really, truly feel like this is a friendship that you've had a long time. Because this person has been a support system in the past. This person has been a support system. But your emotions are kind of clouding your judgment when it comes to this particular situation. And again, if this is a long-term commitment that has nothing to do with another person, this is more of a business thing, your emotional attachment to that manifestation, your emotional attachment to that dream has been clouding your ability to see clearly what must be done, which is accept the fact that it's a loss. I just heard that line from Mean Girls, like, fetch is never going to happen. Like, no matter how much Gretchen Wiener wanted the word fetch to catch on, it just didn't, right? And that's kind of like what just popped into my head right there. But here in this third week, it's either a very close friend or it's, again, a long-term commitment, maybe regarding to business. Your emotions and your attachment to this particular outcome is clouding your judgment, and it's preventing you from seeing the bigger picture. Here in the last week, I know, I'm sorry, that was such a downer. But here in this last week, but you're finally able, look, again, there's a high, or there's a low, and then there's a high, and then there's a low, and then there's a high. You're finally able to free yourself from this mental prison, from this limiting belief, this idea that has been limiting to you. And you're finally able to move forward by taking little steps at a time. I love that. This is a lot about acceptance, I think, for you this month. A lot about acceptance. And you being able to free yourself here at the end of the month with Mercury moving into Sagittarius. It almost feels like tapping back into that deeper understanding that if it didn't happen, if what we wanted didn't come to fruition in some way, that means that there is something else better in store for us. It's kind of just like this month you're going to have to move past. It feels like a dam. Like you're having to like climb this hill. You're having to climb over this dam in order to reach that smoother water. But it's the climb to get past this wall that's going to be the hardest thing. Because you guys are very willful, which is a beautiful thing. But it can also be a downfall because that can make you very stubborn. But here in this last week, you're able to overcome it. You're ready to move forward. And you're ready to take the small, intentional, deliberate steps that are going to allow you to do so. Longing for home, homesick for the stars. We can always be homesick for the things that really made us feel at home, for the things that made us feel joyful and fulfilled. We can always long for those places. And so that's kind of what this energy feels like, this not wanting to face the truth. Even though in your heart you know that it's there, you know that that's the truth, your mind is like, no, I'm not willing to accept that right now. But your heart is longing to move on. Your heart is really longing for you to be able to go back to this place. And it could be that that's why the mind doesn't want to accept it, that this particular manifestation was attached to something that was much deeper. I just heard a sense of value, whether that's with a relationship, whether that it's manifesting a relationship, whether it's manifesting money, whether it's manifesting career, success, prosperity, whatever it is, it's attached to some deeper value that is tied to your sense of identity. Okay. So when it's like, this thing isn't wanting to be accepted, it's because you don't want to have to accept that that home that you thought was real isn't actually where you belong. I hope that made sense. Trust the timing. Trust the wave you came on. Time is not running out. Taking that leap of faith and walking away from the things that are unfulfilling, walking away from the things that are not giving back which you've been putting in. Deep cellular healing, physical and emotional healing. And even with the Three of Cups, again, I said it really like a hard. I do feel like for some of you, this is going to be a friendship, that having to recognize that this friend is not the support system you thought they were is going to bring about a deep sense of emotional, physical and emotional healing. And that's going to force you to recognize that, like, maybe you have to put boundaries between you and this other person. Maybe you've got to cut the friendship off completely, but that is going to allow you the opportunity to heal. It's going to allow you to heal past this feeling of not feeling supported by those closest to you. Whether, again, that's a friendship, a business partner, a parent, even a family member in some way. It's that you don't feel supported, or even by the universe. I don't feel supported by the universe. But this is a time for healing. This is a time for you to see the bigger picture and for you to see really what's happening. It's not personal. It's not personal at all. The void, stop, embrace winter, the great cosmic womb. Even though we have not shifted into winter, we did just shift into fall, which is the time where we begin to prepare for winter. This is the time of harvest, where we begin to take stock of all of the seeds that we planted that didn't grow. And maybe they didn't grow because we didn't water them. Okay, I don't think that's what's going on here, but it is something to keep in mind. Take stock of the seeds that didn't grow. How can you move forward now that you see the truth clearly? Now that you've felt this battle between your mind and your body, the mind and the heart, now that you've felt this battle and you see what must be done, what steps can you take? Right? And this could be a time for you to take some self-reflection to allow for that emotional, that mental, that physical healing to occur, and allow yourself to move on and to see what is next. So I truly hope this helped. I know that it was kind of like, whoo, it was up and down, but I do feel like this is a battle for you guys. This is a battle for your mind versus your heart. And it's going to be challenging for you to stay centered in that heart. Okay? But that is what the universe, I do believe, is trying to guide you to do. So keep that in mind. I hope you guys have an incredible month. I hope you guys have a safe Halloween, and we will see you next time.